Hello and welcome to Pacific Storm Allies with General C. 42. Today we're looking at Otto's Kriegsmarine mod. And you're wondering probably what's staring in front of you. This is a recreation of my, what I call my Indian fleet in Hearts of Iron 3. I'll tell you a little bit about the background of this game, just looking at this formation of ships before I get into actually looking at the ships and reviewing the mod. This is an interesting little story. Basically what happened in my Hearts of Iron 3 games, I didn't declare war as Germany until mid-1943. And I used the time, the extra 4 years, to build up a much larger navy, a much larger air force, and a massively larger armored force in the Wehrmacht. And right in front of you, again, as I said, the Atlantic fleet, the Indian fleet. So the whole idea of this fleet was to go into the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean and wreak havoc. It also carried with it about 10 to 20 transport ships, depending on its pre-war and then war configuration in the Pacific. This fleet had basically one job and did extremely well. The task behind it was to see, with the aid of the Imperial Japanese Navy, keep control of the Pacific and Indian Oceans, and did this job very well, until it came across the U.S. Navy. And the U.S. Navy gave this little task force a run for its money because it had no carriers. The very few escort carriers I was able to produce during the war, well, before the war, were all stuck in the Atlantic fleet for obvious reasons of defending Germany. This fleet had another objective, and it was to land, I believe it was 2 Panzer divisions and a Marine division and 2 infantry divisions along with their HQ in the Pacific. And I do believe I seized French Indochina using that force. And I think I also invaded a bit of the I don't think I ever hit India with this fleet, or haven't yet. I do remember I did take Indochina with this from France, before the fall of France. Anyway, let's take a look at the fleet itself. The fleet itself comprises of a astonishing 20 destroyers, all of the Narvik class, which when you just scroll in on Narvik, here's a Narvik, all armed with 150 millimeter guns. And I had a little problem in Pacific Storm Allies the first time I did this recreation to run it through a simulation test. I ran all my fleets through a test in Pacific Storm Allies, given the average scenario it run into, to see if it had a chance of winning, or if it could just beat the enemy fleet into a draw even with heavy losses. That's when I knew I could declare war or not, and be comfortable with the ability of the Kriegsmarine to actually fight the British Navy, the American Navy, well, the Royal Navy, the American Navy. And I had a little problem with trying to discover how many destroyers I should have, because I had, in the game, only 5 Destroyer-Geschwader in this fleet, and it's like, oh wait, Destroyer-Geschwader would roughly translate into English as Destroyer Squadron, so I will just use the default squadron of destroyers in Pacific Storm Allies. That would give me the nice number of 20 destroyers, basically, for the fleet. The next part of the fleet that's important, and the next largest in number, is the Leipzig class light cruisers. These form the basis of my light cruisers until, in that game, early to mid-1944, when they were replaced with newer models. But a lot of my Leipzig stayed on the seas and were only transferred into reserve divisions in I believe the early 1950s. And yes, in my game, I modded it so that the game will run until the year 2000. So that game went interesting later on. The Leipzigs formed the backbone of my light cruisers until, again, the early 50s. But started getting phased out in the mid-40s. The next important class of ship, which there were, there were 5 Leipzigs in the Indian fleet, as you can see here. The next one is the Schwerer cruiser or heavy cruiser Admiral Hipper. There were 4 Hipper class heavy cruisers in this fleet, and I wish I knew more of the history about the Hippers. I mean, I know that the Admiral Hipper itself was, I believe, with Bismarck on that faithful journey of getting sunk by the Royal Navy. Actually, no, I believe it was Hipper that was with Bismarck when she sunk the Hood. Never mind, wrong story. You know, there are 4 Hippers, as I already said, in this fleet. They serve basically the backup for the real pride of the fleet. And I'm going to probably bet... Okay, yep. The mainstay of the real powerhouse in the Indian fleet was the Scharnhorsts. I had 2 Scharnhorst pocket battleships, or more appropriately, battle cruisers, in this fleet. And they really made a mess of the first real opposition they met. Because I've got a complete recreation of this battle right here in Kriegsmarine Allies, where what happened was this fleet, my entire fleet, came across a British heavy cruiser fleet. And I tried to pick as many ships as I could, because they were using the Fiji class light cruisers, they were using the Dorsetshire heavy cruisers, and they were using the Eclipse class destroyers as well. This is all just one massive recreation of that battle. I don't want any ships outrunning any other ships. I know they're all fast, but I really want the combined firepower of everything. You know, that's just too far here. Before I do anything else, but yeah. Primary composition, Narvik class destroyers, Leipzig class light cruisers, Admiral Hipper class heavies, there you go, and Scharnhorst class battle cruisers, pocket battleships. And I would show you the Atlantic fleet, but the Atlantic fleet got ridiculous very fast in that game, because it, by the end of the... one of my Narviks just took a heavy beating. Anyway, like I was saying, by the end of 1943, no, by the end of 1944, when I was getting ready to perform Operation Sea Lion, the state of the Atlantic fleet was ridiculous. There's actually 2 Atlantic fleets by that point, both with a lot of surface ships and a lot of minor ships. Okay, this one's not going quite the same as it did before. Beforehand, it just made a royal mess of the British ships. Mine didn't take much because of the far larger range of the Scharnhorst, ripping everything to pieces before the British cruisers and destroyers could even get within range of fire. ISIS, however, do have superior firepower. Anyway, onto the mod. The Kriegsmarine mod by Otto. I will provide link in the description to the download page for Otto's Kriegsmarine mod, well, Kriegsmarine mod, and his Italian and I believe French Navy mods, as well as all of his other miscellaneous mods. I only currently use the Kriegsmarine because the other ones didn't really interest me, though I might get them later. Link in the description for that stuff, just so he can get the credit he deserves, because I adore this mod, and I would never even dream of trying to say that I was the one who made it, because I might play Pacific Rim Allies, I cannot mod it. Okay, now see, here's where the destruction occurred. The Scharnhorst, even their secondary batteries are opening up. These Eclipse and Fiji classes have had it. Oh, and now in the Dortshire is starting to get hammered. Now I'm going to lose a couple of Scharnhorst. No, nothing to say Scharnhorst, a couple of Narviks. Because some of them have taken so much of a beating already. And this one in particular. Oh, she's got flooding. And although the British have the first casualty when the Eclipse went down, this is the German fleet in a nutshell. Oh, well, there's the going down Eclipse. Now, what the? Oh, they threw their tankers in here. One thing I did not show off was I did not throw the tankers in this. I left the tankers out. And also another mention is I had, in 43, I had 3 major fleets, minus the reserve fleets. I had this fleet, which was sitting around the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. We lost Narvik. This is one I was expecting to lose anyway. I had a copy of this fleet that was just hanging around in the Mediterranean to cover the Africa Corps. Although by that point it's actually the Africa Army, because I put quite a few things under Rommel in Africa. I wanted to guarantee the seizure of Egypt in the Middle East. Simply because I didn't feel like invading the Soviet Union, and invading Egypt in the Middle East seems like a much safer idea. So that's why I went with it instead. Hippers are losing quite a lot of anti-aircraft. Well, I suppose it's also because they're covered in them. There's one. Oh, there's it. Where'd my other Scharnhorst run off to? There it is. Oh god, even the 88. These are 88mm secondary batteries. Actually, third batteries to be completely technical. So yeah, I do pity the British right now, because they're under heavy fire from all all of my batteries. The government there said I lost an admiral hipper. It's like, what? I had basically lost a hipper already. Oh dear lord, the running of the British fleet. Now I might cover a, if it comes out the same way it did in Pacific Storm Allies as it did in Hearts of Iron 3, I will have a video of this very same fleet with the losses it sustained after this fight against the United States Navy, because the U.S. Navy did dispatch a battleship fleet actually to take care of this one. And what happened was a narrow victory for my Indian fleet with very, very heavy casualties. I think only 2 of my Hipper class survived. I think both of my Scharnhorst lived. I think I lost all but 1 or 2 of my Leipzig class light cruisers, and the ones that did survive were heavily damaged. And I lost a good, I think, 14 destroyers. No, it would be 16 destroyers, because I lost, of the 5 destroyer Geschwader, I lost 4 of them. So, extremely heavy casualties, but I did sink, I believe, 1 Colorado-class battleship, and then I believe a couple of American heavy cruisers, a couple of light cruisers, and a bunch of destroyers. The casualties were about the same, just with the U.S. losing a battleship when I did not lose a Scharnhorst. Ooh, hello, and the Fiji just went down. I'm not sure if that's going to reflect in this game, however. If it does, however, I will be posting another Kriegsmarine mod to kind of look at with that battle. And this battle is basically turning out how it did in Hearts of Iron 3. The only difference is if I lose another destroyer, that will perfectly match my losses from that game. Only if I don't lose... Okay, that's the second destroyer. If I don't lose any more destroyers, it's going to be perfectly like the other... like the Hearts of Iron 3 game. If I lose any more, then it's going to be just a slight variation. There have been always slight deviations where sometimes in this I don't lose any ships whatsoever, and sometimes I just wipe the floor with the British fleet. Other times I lose a bunch of destroyers, but not a single heavy ship, which I think is a little more realistic given the fact I'm fighting basically a fleet of equal strength if the British fleet had 2 battleships to be of exactly equal strength. Battleship battle cruisers, I should say. Oh dear lord. Well, there goes 2 eclipses and a Fiji, almost at the same time. How are the British heavies doing? Okay, there's one. Where'd the other one bugger off to? There's no way I could have sunk. Okay, there it is. What I might show, however, is the battle between a fleet which is a copy of this versus the entire British Mediterranean fleet in Hearts of Iron 3. I took extreme losses in that battle. with, again, I believe only the heaviest ships and maybe one or two destroyers surviving. And the main difference between this fleet and my Mediterranean fleet was the fact that the Mediterranean fleet, I believe, just one or two more destroyer geschwaders. It said like another 4 to 8 destroyers. Not that it made any difference, because, okay, now I've lost 2 more Narviks than I did in Hearts of Iron 3, so just keep that in mind. It's going to be a pretty close representation, because, oh, there goes another cruiser. It gives me a close representation. It won't be perfect, because it's completely... I'm not going to say it's impossible to completely replicate the results of one game in another, but I'm trying my best. Oh, and the British lost a tanker. There was something that this did actually excellently well, was convoy raiding. Then this is one massive fleet. I believe here's going to go the other Fiji class. I think this is the last of the Fijis. Yes, it is. One with Yorkshires left. There goes the Fiji. And now the HMS Cornwall. Oh, that's funny. It's actually HMS Cornwall that was actually in the fleet. Okay, well, that's not the Narvik. But that was fighting me, but I do believe, yeah, Berwick was not. Berwick was in one of the fleets in the Atlantic, covering the British miles. I believe they're just down to a tanker, a badly battered Eclipse that's sinking, a badly battered Yorkshire, which is sinking as well. And 2 transports into the tanker. The tanker is also taking flooding damage. Cornwall's lost all of her primary guns, also fires her torpedo tubes. And now, of course, this one's in bad shape. It's under fire from basically every ship in the fleet. I believe even the 88s on the smaller ships are opening fire. Yep. Yeah, this is just overkill. Okay, now all these secondary. Oop, perfect. Sunk. Where are you? Oh god, you're capsizing. And another Cornwall is not doing well at all. Her engines are destroyed and flooded. Now she's taking fire from every large caliber and small caliber gun from my fleet. In Hearts of Iron 3, I took very few casualties, because with only one destroyer geschwader reaching 50% health, so I can imagine that meant that 2 were sunk, or at least 2 were disabled. But the main reason for that was, again, the Scharnhorst class were able to outgun and outrange the British cruisers, so by the time the British fleet was even within firing range of mine, I do believe I'd already had several ships sunk because of the Scharnhorst. And there goes to the Yorkshire. I believe there's only... Yep, there's only one British transport ship alive. That one's taking a slow sinking route. Yeah, it happens. These didn't quickly sink, so you know that at least some survivors. Yeah, now the Kennedy is probably wishing it wasn't alive. There's going to be so much constant fire. And there it goes, got hit by a 14-inch broadside from one of the Sean horses, I believe. And I believe that's the last one. Oh no, there's a couple of bloody walrus. Scouts buzzing around. Surprised I didn't kill more of them. Oh well, that's what it is. I'm gonna exit the battle though. To the menu, yes. Okay, so I lost 5 Norviks in this battle, which is 3 more than I lost in Kriegsmarine 3, I believe. For the loss of the entire British fleet, which is 54 ships. Which is again accurate. Again, aircraft lost 8, and they're going to lose the other 8 or 10, whatever's left. Probably pretty soon. That's roughly the results I had in the game. Again, probably later I will have another... Damn it, lost my train of thought. We'll have another video up of the Kriegsmarine mod of one of my other fleets, or another weird, strange thing that I managed to get away with in another Hearts of Iron 3 game. And I'd highly recommend you take a look at Otto's Kriegsmarine mod, or his other mods, that add other nations' fleets into the game. I mean, Germany's fleet was always there, but it was only like the Bismarcks and the destroyers, and that's about it. The Kriegsmarine mod really gives it new life. I mean, there were a lot of ships I didn't show you here. There were some ships that Germany was intending to build but never built. Some that only 1 or 2 were built, and you can see what would happen if more were built against Scharnhorst. The only thing it doesn't add is a German light carrier, but then again, escort carrier, sorry. But then again, Germany never built any. There was the Graf Zeppelin, which is a full-class carrier, which is in the Kriegsmarine mod. So it's a really good mod. I suggest you check it out. I will have a link in the description to the download page for this mod and Otto's other mods, which is Otto's Workshop, on the Pacific Storm Allies forums. And on that note, I will catch you in the next episode. And I hope you enjoy hopefully I haven't recorded it yet, hopefully last episode of the Battle of Shanghai later today. And I will catch you in the next episode.